What's up, boys and girls? Chasing around iguanas down here in Florida. Actually, not chasing them, but I walk around the lake and they just take off. They take off and jump into the lake, so it's pretty funny. Figured I'd hop on and take some questions, see what y'all got. Ask me anything. Maybe something I didn't answer last live. Sorry if it's really loud. I'll get out of the wind here in a second. But put your questions down in the question box, not in the actual chat, because there's just too much stuff going on in that chat, and I won't be able to get to the actual questions. So they're starting to pour in now. There's 3, 4, 5. So let's get right into it. What's your favorite folk style wrestling move? So for those of you that don't know, folk style is an American style of wrestling that we do in amateur wrestling, high school, middle school, club wrestling. Different rules than freestyle, than international wrestling. Favorite move in folk style wrestling has to be the sweep single. Because for me, when you get down in that stance, that low stance, you have to have a really, really, really good setup if you want to actually get into your opponent's hips and drive through them. So that sweep single kind of puts you out of the way of his hips, out of the way of his pressure. And that's why footwork and hand fighting and creating angles is so important, because if you want to be able to hit a high crouch or hit a double leg and be able to blast through your opponent, you're going to need to really set it up well. So the most high percentage takedown, in my opinion, is that sweep single leg. Just make sure you set it up really well. Good question, though. What got you into wrestling? So essentially I got into wrestling because my dad wrestled a couple years and he was a volunteer coach. I wrestled when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, wrestled for about 3 years, and then just carried on. You know, I was not a big guy. You know, I was 100 pounds soaking wet going into high school, so being that star basketball player, football player, baseball player wasn't exactly going to be, I guess I could have played baseball, but, you know, being a star on the basketball team or the football team wasn't going to be in the cards for me. So I got on the wrestling mats. Shout out to Northwest Wrestling, Ron and Bob Wilhelm. They coached me up and ended up being a state runner-up in high school, and then walked on to the University of Missouri, and never looked back since. That carried me on into now mixed martial arts. But I just, I get asked this all the time, why do I love wrestling so much? Truthfully, I love the sport of wrestling more than I love the sport of mixed martial arts, even though I have now been doing mixed martial arts now for 11 years. But the reason I love wrestling so much is just like fighting. There's nobody there to save you when you're drowning. There's nobody there to blame whenever you lose. And there's also nobody there to take credit when you win. Of course, you guys always hear me give props to my coaches. You know, when I get a nice big knockout, I give props to Henry Hoof. When I get a submission, giving props to my grappling coaches, Kami and Greg and Gilbert Burns. But for the most part, it's you versus your opponent out there. So that's why I love that hand-to-hand combat wrestling. Got some people on here talking trash about how Khabib's going to beat me. That's cool. I expect you to believe that. A lot of people expected Eddie Alvarez to beat me back in the day, too, when I was a 1,001 underdog. So we shall see. Why did you transition to UFC from Bellator? So for me, it's never been about the promotion, you know. It's just about going out there and fighting. I always wanted to fight in the UFC, obviously. I never didn't fight in the UFC, not because I didn't want to. It just never worked out that way. You know, I signed with Bellator a long time ago. Each time my contract was up, we talked, we came to terms, we got a deal done. This time we didn't. You know, and part of the reason was I really felt an inkling pulling me in this direction. I know I'm still the best lightweight in the world. I know I can still beat every lightweight on the roster. I know I can beat Khabib. I know I can beat Gaethje. And we may get to see that October 24th. We may not. So that's why. Dream MMA opponent, past or present? Present, 1,000% Khabib. That's the fight that I want, mainly because he's the number one guy. There's more money taking a Conor fight, or there's more money, or there's I guess more athletic accomplishment by working your way up and getting that UFC title shot. But for me, Khabib's the number one guy. I've always said that. They always, anytime somebody asks me that, my answer always is whoever's the number one lightweight in the world. Right now, Khabib, undefeated, number one pound for pound, number one lightweight in the world. Great moments and great opportunities. When they present themselves, you got to take them. So if I got that opportunity, I would love to fight Khabib. In the past, maybe someone who has retired, really look up to GSP. I love his style. Back in the day, some of the salty old guys, BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, that would have been a fun heyday, a fun time era to fight in as well. Do you want to fight Conor? Of course. Doing another U-version reading plan, hopefully sometime soon. So for y'all that don't know, I have a 3-day championship mindset Bible study on the actual Bible app, the brown one, the one that's the most downloaded app in the entire world. I think it's in like 100-something different languages. So I think if you type in Michael Chandler, Confidence of a Champion, it'll come up, and it's a 3-day Bible study. Pretty cool little deal. So thanks for asking. Hopefully we do one down the line. Who is your favorite fighter in the UFC currently? Shoot, man. I'll tell you what. I mean, I got so many great teammates that I currently train with. Just to name a few: Robbie Lawler, absolute legend, friend of mine. Gilbert Burns, fighting for that title. Hopefully sometime at the end of the year. Love his tenacity, dangerous everywhere. Also in the UFC, Luke Rockhold is a teammate of mine and friend of mine. And I think one that would surprise you guys, because this is, he's never fought for a title, or he's not necessarily in that top number 1, 2, 3 spot. But Shane Burgos, and I've never met him before. We've talked a little bit over social media, but Hurricane Shane Burgos is probably my favorite guy to watch. I think he's a nut. I think he's crazy. I think he fights with reckless abandon. I have talked to him a little bit about fighting a little bit with reckless abandon so he can prolong the career as long as possible, because remember, Shane is a marathon, not a sprint. But Hurricane Shane Burgos is one of my favorite fighters as well. So, dang. What is your favorite? What is your favorite weight class to watch? Can't be lightweight. I would go with, currently right now, man, I usually kind of revert one weight class close to me, 145 or 170. Currently looking at the 170, the welterweight division. With you just saw the Covington Woodley fight. You got Kamaru Usman versus Burns. You got Colby versus Nate Diaz, possibly. You got Conor, who's constantly talking about going up to 170, which he's actually never fought a welterweight. He's always fought a lightweight at 170, giving the illusion that he is that big, but he's actually not that big. He's still probably a 145er. So I would say welterweight. I mean, you look at the old guard, Tyron Woodley, who was the champion for many years, many title defenses. You look at a guy like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You look at a teammate of mine, Vicente Luque, who's one of the most crisp strikers in the entire world, who's sitting at like number 10. You got Gilbert Burns, my teammate fighting the champion Kamaru Usman. You got George Masvidal, who basically resurrected his career. And you still got Robbie Lawler in there looming. You got a guy like Neil Magny, who's just about tied for the winningest welterweight on the in the history of the UFC. Man, I'm going welterweight. I'm going welterweight 170. I don't even have to think about and run down the 145-pound division. I'm going welterweight in the UFC. Anytime there's a big time welterweight fight, I'm in. What is your walk around weight like? So my walk around weight is different than a lot of people's walk around weight, and I tell you this because I think a lot of guys get heavy, but they get heavy because they're out of shape. I'm not the kind of guy who sits on the couch. I'm not the kind of guy who takes many days off. If you guys have been following me since, before my last fight, you'll see the videos that I posted both on my story, live videos, and on my hard posts right after my last fight, August 7th. I was back in the gym the following week. I'm not gonna balloon up. I'm not gonna let my body fat get all out of hand and and it's just going to mess with my cortisol levels and all your different levels. Some of these guys don't understand that movement is medicine, and even if it's just getting out and taking a walk. You notice barefoot, literally I just decided to go live. Wasn't really planned, but I wanted to walk around on the ground, get a nice little walk in. Movement is medicine. So to your actual question, I kind of went right back into training too, because I had a sneaky suspicion I was going to be signing with the UFC and they were going to say, hey, you got to be ready. So usually 185 is where I get to. That's where I still feel lean. I mean, I've gotten up to 192, 194 before, but you know, I will humbly admit I was not in the kind of shape I needed to be. You know, maybe I had a leg injury, a couple different leg injuries, a couple different little injuries. But for the most part, I try to stay in the upper 70s, low 80s. That's where I feel best. What's your diet plan? Very, it's hard to explain it here, but I'll just give you a couple key points. Number one, drinking a ton of water. Number two, you guys will see, if you guys follow me on here, follow my stories every day. I use a meal prep company called Mega Fit Meals, megafitmeals.com. You can go on there and customize. And I basically just pick and choose between 4 lean meats and 3 or 4 lean vegetables. So I'll go chicken, lean ground beef, lean ground bison, ground turkey, mixed with Brussels sprouts, broccoli, sweet potato, or green beans. And it ain't pretty. It is monotonous. I use a little Tessemae's dressing, high fat, but you know, decently healthy dressing to spice it up a little bit. And I do that eggs and avocado and greens in the morning, 2 protein shakes a day after workouts, lean meat coupled with vegetables. Nobody ever got fat on protein and vegetables. So that's what I do for 10 weeks straight. And that's why I can make 155. That's why I can be a big lean 155er and make weight pretty darn easy, because the discipline, the weight cuts doesn't start the week of the fight. It starts 10 weeks before the fight. How do you make your strength and conditioning program during fight camp? So for me, I love lifting weights. I think it's very beneficial. I think my longevity in the sport and my ability to not withstand injuries has everything to do with me adding external force, i.e., for example, weights and decently heavy weights. So for me, I like lifting weights. It makes me feel, number one, powerful. It makes me feel strong. It makes me feel athletic. I'm usually doing a full body push. People ask me that too. Hey, are you doing arms and back one day and then just legs the next workout? For the most part, I'm working and focusing on a couple different things. Functional strength that requires some sort of movement or balance, coupled with explosive movements. So I'm constantly trying to gain speed and gain power. So all of my workouts, every single one of my strength and conditioning workouts, we're going to do a good mobility warm-up. And then secondly, we're going to work full body. You know, it's going to be maybe a pull coupled with a push, or a heavy pull coupled with a explosive pull, a heavy push coupled with an explosive push, both legs, lower body, core, upper body. And I'll lift twice a week. So in between camps, so just to give you guys, for instance, right now, I'm actually a little bit lighter right now than I normally am, you know, this far out from a fight, because I just did a 12-week training camp, fought August 7th, took 0 days off, and now I've gone essentially right back into training camp, because I knew I was going to probably have to fight sometime in October, November, December. I needed to be ready for the call. So I haven't been able to lift as much as I normally do, and I've lost a little bit of muscle mass because I've just been in training camp, made the weight cut and whatnot. So for me, I like to lift 2 days a week, lift heavy. So when I get done with this fight, October 24th, whether I fight or don't fight, I'll go into a nice little 4 to 6 week heavy lifting block, put a little bit more muscle back on, and be ready for the next training camp, the call. If you go down to 145, who would be your most difficult challenge? This is a very interesting thing, because right now I got a ton of people on opposite ends of the spectrum. I get people on the same video or the same picture, and I know this is part of, the platform growing into that, but on the same video, you got some people saying, hey, man, you look like a midget, man. You should go down to 145. And then on the same video, I'll get a comment on the exact opposite of the spectrum. Dang, man, you're a huge lightweight. How do you make 155? You should think about going up to 170. So always remember, it's much harder to actually gauge how big or the size of an actual person when you're just looking at social media. I can't make 145. I probably will never go down to 145. I just have too much muscle mass, and I'm just too dense. And as I said, when I'm 180 pounds, 185 pounds, that's me at 9% body fat. I don't have a ton of fat to lose. But who would be the most difficult challenge? Volkanovski, obviously the champion. Max Holloway, who in my mind is one of the most versatile and most dangerous strikers, as well as he's just hard to take down. He's gritty. He's a tough Hawaiian. So Max Holloway or Volkanovski. But like I said, I can't make 145, nor would I want to make 145. So if you're not a fighter, then what you do? So I will rephrase that question and maybe, if you may, super emancipative, I would say, if I wasn't fighting, what would I do? So for those of you who don't know, I wrestled in college. I got my degree from the University of Missouri, Mizzou Tigers. I majored in real estate, or I majored in personal finance and real estate. I have since used my degree to a certain extent because I do have a ton of investments, making sure I'm setting myself up, my family up, and I have some real estate as well. So I think if I wasn't fighting, I probably would have gone right into the workforce, started managing people's finances, quickly realized that isn't something I want to do all the time, and I probably would have started a wrestling club, or I probably would have been a college wrestling coach. College wrestling, the sport of college wrestling, Division I, college wrestling was some of the best 5 years of my entire life. The camaraderie, the day in, day out grind, two workouts a day for 6 days a week, 360 days a year. Even in the summer, we were constantly grinded. I'd be traveling around the country with Ben Askren doing camps, and a couple of my other teammates and training partners doing wrestling camps, and we'd be wrestling every day, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. Shoot, sometimes 3 days, 4 days. Sometimes we just hang out in the wrestling room all day long and just go live goes and then stop, and then do some drills and then stop. It was all we wanted to do. It consumed us. And so when you see success that these wrestlers are having, it's not because we can pick guys up and put them down. It's because we are a living physical manifestation of putting in 10,000 hours and dedicating 10,000 hours to your craft. So I'd be a wrestling coach if I wasn't fighting. What else we got here? Who poses the biggest threat for you on the UFC roster? Now, let's be honest. Every single fighter on the UFC roster is extremely tough. You don't just get into the UFC. You don't just show up and they let you onto the roster and let you get into fights. But who poses the biggest threat? I think it's a very close competition between Khabib and Gaethje. I think Khabib Nurmagomedov has looked just about as unbeatable as you possibly can in the sport of mixed martial arts. I think his skill set that he imposes and the ease in which he imposes that skill set consistently on a consistent basis is downright amazing. Now, with that being said, Justin Gaethje, I think, looked like the best lightweight on the entire planet in his last out against Tony Ferguson. The way that he showed up, calm and composed, smart and sharp, stringing together those combinations, he looked like the best lightweight on the planet. With that being said, we're probably going to see who's the better man on October 24th. If we don't see who's the better man between those two, that means yours truly's hopping on in there, and I get to insert my name into the mix. Either way, my name's already inserted into the mix. But, I like the Dustin Poirier fight for me. I like the Tony Ferguson fight for me. Anybody in that top five. I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. I'm here to make moves, never make excuses, and just constantly move forward and see what happens. So let's do a couple more. Ooh, good question. Do you run or do road work? I do. I don't do a ton of it, but I got here. I visited the family past weekend, came here and ran around this little park here for about 40 minutes. So when I do my runs, they're really recovery runs. They're not, I'm not trying to get 5.5 minute, 6 minute miles. I'm not trying to do long, hard runs. I will do a 40-minute, about 4 miles, which, do the math, that's about, 9.5 to 10 minute per mile pace. It's not a breakneck speed. I'm really just flushing out the body, keeping the legs moving. As we said, movement is medicine. Building that mitochondria, building the cardio base. Because for me, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to get my cardio from my sparring rounds, my grappling rounds, my wrestling practice. I mean, today we did like an hour and a half straight of wrestling, nonstop moving, drilling. So for me, running and road work, I put 8 to 10 miles in a week, probably over 2 different runs. And for me, it's just recovery. It's a form of rejuvenation and rest for me. But good question. Train 2 times a day. Do you train 2 times a day or 3 times a day? Usually just twice. Today, the last 2 days, and today I got a 2. I essentially do 2 workouts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This week I'm going to do 2 workouts on Friday. So that's 5 days in a week of two a days. Saturday I'm going to work out once, and I'm going to hop on a plane and go see my family. And then maybe I'll do a sauna on Saturday night, and then I'll probably go for a run on Sunday. I usually do like to take the day off on Sunday, but as I said, I'll do a recovery run, so I don't really consider that a training or a workout. But 2 a days, 5 days a week, and I've been doing that since I was 14 years old. So that's why we're here. When I win the UFC lightweight championship, a lot of you guys are going to call me an overnight success, but it will have taken me 21 years to become an overnight success. So I'm excited to tell you all the story. I'm excited for y'all to be on this journey with me, because I've been doing this for a long time, as I said. We kind of touched on this earlier. Would I ever go up to 170? I would go up to 170 for the right fight. This is what I've always said. Is 170 my weight class? Absolutely not. Is 170 a weight class I could be decently successful at? I do think so. But, man, you're talking about these dudes who are 6'1", 6'2", 210 pounds, cutting down to 170. They're just bigger than me. They're just downright bigger than me. They're longer than me. But you talk about fighting, a George Masvidal, who is, a 155-pounder, who went up to 170. You talk about fighting Conor at 170, who he's really a 155-pounder. You talk about fighting Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz at 170, which I think both of those guys, who knows what happens with Nick, but Nate's definitely a 155er. There's definitely some fights that I would take at 170. But no, welterweight will not be my weight class, my preferred weight class, my weight class of choice. But that BMF title, man, some fun stuff with there. I mean, we could do that for sure. Explosive or strength exercise first. So, let me give you guys a philosophy real quick. Strength plus speed equals power. So my goal when I'm doing strength and conditioning, of course, I'm always trying to increase my strength, but I'm always trying to increase power. If I can increase power in my legs, I'm going to be it's going to be harder to be taken down. It's going to be easier for me to get takedowns. It's going to be better. It's going to suit me better in my grappling and in my striking. If I can throw and punch more powerfully, I'm going to get more knockouts. I'm going to do more damage. So strength plus speed equals power. So I'm going to couple a strength workout with an explosive workout. That's how I increase power. So for instance, let's use the most universal workout of all time is the bench press. So I'm going to load up a heavy bench press, do 5 reps, slow, 5 heavy straight bar bench presses, go right over to a med ball, 10-pound med ball, and I'm going to chest pass it up against the wall 5 times, 10 times. So I did a strength movement, the bench press, a speed movement, which was the med ball, and those 2 movements together increase power. You can do this with squats with box jumps. You can do this with heavy rows, and then some banded rows, really fast and explosive. You can do this, any kind of movement that is a strength movement coupled with a speed movement is how you increase power. Let's take a couple more here. This is really fun. I really appreciate you all being with me on this journey and taking an interest in all this. This is it's gonna be fun. lot of people asking the same questions, but someone just asked me if I'll follow them. Nutrition. Let's talk about supplementation since we already talked about nutrition. Real quick, sorry, Camille, if you missed it. As I said, I like to couple 4 to 5 whole lean meats with 4 to 5 whole lean vegetables. Chicken, ground bison, ground beef, salmon, which I understand is not a meat, but it's a fish. It's a protein source. As well as turkey, bison, lean ground beef, chicken, and salmon, coupled with broccoli, cauliflower, green beans, and sweet potato. Those are kind of mix and match everything of what I do. But let's talk about supplementation. So for me, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, fish oils. So your fish oils, your EPA and DHA, your turmeric, your ginger, your resveratrols, those kind of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, extremely important. Whey protein for me every day. What else we got? Obviously, I take a multivitamin. Just got to make sure it's all NSF certified. Magnesium and melatonin at night to help me sleep, as well as get into that deep REM sleep so I can recover. I'm blanking on stuff. Vitamin D, because I obviously miss the sun sometimes. What else we got? I know a lot of people talking about glucosamine, chondroitin, that kind of stuff. That's always good for your joints. I like to do a collagen protein as well as an MCT oil in the morning. So I have found I can eat a very, very small breakfast or no breakfast at all as long as I do collagen protein, MCT oil, maybe a little bit of non-dairy creamer in my coffee in the morning. And that gives me a nice little stint of energy all the way through my first workout on into the afternoon. Let's enter one more training. And probably the most important question anybody could ask in the entire world is, how do you train your mental strength? A couple different ways. Number one, put yourself in adverse situations. Get yourself outside of your comfort zone, because there and only there can you build the mental fortitude that leads to freedom, that leads to success. So repeat that again. Get outside of your comfort zone so you can galvanize your mind, bulletproof your mind, and prove to yourself that you have more than you thought you did. You can never prove to yourself that you have more in the tank, or you have more abilities, or more talent, or more gumption to be able to achieve and accomplish more. You can never reveal that to yourself if you never put yourself in a situation to reveal it. It's just like putting weight on the bar. Hey, can you bench press 315? Well, I don't know unless I put 315 on the bar and I push it. And then I push it and I do it and I think, well, shoot, I just did it. So now I know I can put 315 on the bar. So unless you put yourself in those adverse scenarios, live outside your comfort zone more often than you live inside your comfort zone, and you will continue to bulletproof your mind. And then you can make savage your body. Then you can make savage your business practices. Then you could be a savage in your relationships and love people and take care of people and impact the people that you want to be. Whatever it is you want to do in life, you can't do it without the mental fortitude to be able to push yourself past so many scenarios. Guys, I've been a champion many times, but I've also been a loser of competition many, many times. I've been the worst self-sabotager of all times, but all of those roads led me to this opportunity, to these moments, to you being here, talking to me and taking an interest in me. But so live outside your comfort zone, visualize as much as you possibly can. Visualize success. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What are the emotions that surround it? And lastly, find people and material that will build you up. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to pin that, unsunggrinders.com. You go to unsunggrinders.com and download my free 14-day mindset booklet. There's been over probably 5,000 downloads, and I've had a ton of phenomenal feedback from it. It's 14 days. It's meant to be read like a devotional. That means day one, you read day one, you meditate on day one, you pray over day one, you do whatever you need to do to get yourself in a mindset. You do the action steps, and then you can text me on my number that I give you guys to kind of follow along. And then you move on to day 2 the next day, day 3 the next day. But you don't move on to the next day until you feel like you spent that full day dwelling on and focusing on these certain aspects of 14 Days at the Top is what it's called, the mental mindset booklet. And it's completely free. Just enter your information and we'll email it to you. But what good is the body if you don't have the mind to go with it? You can build that body up. You can lift the weights, you can do the push-ups, you can do the road miles, you can do the sparring. But unless you have the mind, unless the mind is bulletproof, you're just building a bigger, faster, stronger, more in shape, subpar version of the man or woman that you were created to be. I'll say that again. You can do all the physical stuff, all the workouts, all the training, all the push-ups and the road work and the sparring. But without building the mind, if you don't build the mind and focus on the mind, you're just building a bigger, faster, stronger, tougher, more physically imposing looking subpar version of the man or woman that you were created to be. I think we'll end on that note. I really appreciate y'all for being here with me. The best is yet to come. Stay tuned. Strap yourself in because it's about to be a wild ride. As I said, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. And we're going to have some fun fights ahead of us. We're going to have some fun opportunities ahead of us. We're going to have a bunch of ups, maybe a couple downs. Either way, I appreciate you all on this journey. Remember, promise me you're going to do something this week to get outside your comfort zone, because outside of your comfort zone, the life that you want to achieve, the person that you want to be is out there waiting for you on the outskirts and on the outside of your comfort zone. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. God bless. I'll see you at the top.